So, anti-fascist pasta nights are a thing in Italy. They've existed since Mussolini got out of power because Mussolini took pasta away from the Italian people when he was in power. He said like you got to eat meat because pasta makes you weak. And by the way, he also had like a big thing about drinking whole milk. There's a lot of weird parallels with what's going on now in Mussolini, by the way. And then later Mussolini took away coffee from the Italian people, and that's when they decided they were going to kill him. They were like, okay, you're done. No coffee. Okay, nice try. You're going to take away our favorite food and say we can't be caffeinated throughout the day. You're done. It's over for you. So anti-fascist pasta nights have existed since in Italy as a way of gathering and around food and saying, hey, fascism's something we should never let happen again.
Welcome back to War is Stupid, an anti-war podcast about war. My guest today, Ron Placone, is a comedian, leftist, and cat dad. And did I pronounce your last name correctly?
Yeah, you nailed it.
Oh,
Yes.
excellent. You never know if it's going to be a Placone, a Placone. He's a leftist, comedian, cat dad whose stand-up show Anti-Fascist Pasta Night is headed to the Edinburgh Fringe. I had the privilege of seeing a preview in New York this past weekend, and it covers everything from Mussolini to Heated Rivalry. So absolutely, truly everything you'd want from a stand-up hour. So welcome, Ron.
Thank you for that. I appreciate that. That I never thought of it that way, but yes, it does cover everything from Mussolini to Heated Rivalry. Great show. Mussolini, not a great guy, but yeah. And I guess I should say, since you brought it up, technically, if I was in Italy, it is Placone, but in English, it's just Placone. I mean, why complicate it for people? So I've always just gone by Placone.
Yeah, what it got Ellis Island did. And yeah, Mussolini and Heated Rivalry both involved like a decent amount of nudity.
That's true. That's yes, interesting connection. Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah, happy endings, grand finales.
Yes. Yep. There were happy endings in both cases, and a bit open ended in both cases. Heated rivalry in a good way, and Mussolini in a not so good way because his granddaughter's in power now. But yeah, heated rivalry. I don't want to spoil anything. 'Cause it's a brilliant show for anyone who hasn't seen it. But I'm stoked for the next season.
It's huge. So I'm Canadian Jewish, but watching Anti-Fascist Pasta Night, it resonated a lot with me, despite neither being Italian nor American. But it resonated with me. Obviously, Jews and Italians, we play each other's parts in Hollywood. The moms, the food, the noses. But I thought it was particularly interesting in how you talk about fighting against being portrayed as a monolith. So tell me about what you're trying to say with the show.
Yeah, and I totally do see a lot of the parallels there, and I know that and we can dive into it. I know there's certainly a difference in magnitude, and I wouldn't try to imply otherwise. But thematically, there are some parallels, and the Italian American identity for a while now, and there's a long long explanation of propaganda around this, but it's been commonly linked to a right-wing reactionary set of politics, a pro-Christopher Columbus perspective, and reality is different from that. It's totally not a monolith. It never has been. Italian Americans actually are a very, very prominent group in what it means to have unions in this country, because a lot of the early unions in the U.S. happened up in Vermont amidst the stonemasons, and a lot of those were Italian and Italian American socialists. There have been anti-Columbus Day protests led by Italian Americans since the 30s. The first socialist mayor of New York City was an Italian American. There's been some brilliant anarchist thinkers who were Italian Americans. And even you could look at it right now. You can look at it right now where you're thinking, well, gee, Pam Bondi, Rudy Giuliani, look at all these Italian Americans Trump has associated with him. Sure, but who are some of the most mainstream opponents of Trump as far as popularity and mainstream? Well, right now, arguably the biggest thing is Bruce Springsteen's tour. Bruce Springsteen's an Italian American, but he's not just touring by himself, is he? No, he's touring with Tom Morello, another guy who is half Italian American. Where is he Italian American? On his mom's side. Who is his mom? An Italian American activist who has been protesting on the right side of history since the civil rights era and is about to celebrate her 102nd birthday. Who are some other people in Bruce Springsteen's band? Little Steven Van Zandt, an Italian American who was very, very instrumental in being a prominent artist against apartheid. So, like there's this long list. Even you don't really have to look far. It's not like you need to, read a bunch of literature or know about some more obscure figures to know that Italian Americans aren't a monolith. You can even just look in the mainstream and see it, and so there's always been a bit of a bit of a I don't know how to put it, like sadness or a bit of a just disconnect where you grow up and you appreciate that heritage and you celebrate the food and the culture and you try to learn the language and learn about the history of the sports teams that your family likes and stuff like that. And then there's this sort of we've the nickname MAGAroni has come into the spotlight now, which I love. I can't take credit for it. It was coined by a guy named George DeStefano, but it went pretty viral, and it's even in Italy now, which is cool. And I did get his permission to use it in the show. But there's always been this sort of macaroni element that's a bit of a bit of a dark cloud for those of us who really don't share that and never did and never connected with that part of it. And now, for the first time in my adult life, um, there's a big gathering of people speaking out against that, and I think it's reflective. It's reflective of the bigger thing that's going on in the United States, where people are reclaiming their history. Like people in the Midwest are saying, "Hey, it's a bunch of anarchist farmers that gave us this public bank that we love so much," and and tying it into Jewish. There's so many people saying "not in our name" when it comes to Israel, Palestine, and I know I'm preaching to the choir right now there, but there is a bit of a thematic parallel where there's Italian Americans saying not in our name when it comes to somebody like Christopher Columbus. And so I think there's so many different groups that are really saying we're not a monolith and we're not I mean, look at country music. The biggest thing going on in country music is a leftist who's saying, "Hey, let's take this genre back because this is not sucking up to MAGA is not what it means to be an outlaw. You guys have lost the plot." So I celebrate all that, and I think it's important in fighting back against this.
Yeah, and it's ironically more American. Like the irony
Right?
of the most American thing you could try to do is to craft your own identity and not being a sheep. It's empowering to see these movements happening in every community. Have you always been a leftist? What was your political evolution?
I went from just not really aware and I don't want to say apathetic because I was never apathetic, but I didn't really have like political views. I didn't really follow it. Um, I went from that to leftist, and it was the Iraq War. Like I was just sort of kind of apolitical. Like I had thoughts and I had ideas, but I didn't really know how to package them or what it all really meant. And then I started wondering why are we in Iraq? Like what does that have to do with 9/11? And I started asking these questions, and then I learned about the propaganda of Fox News, and I started reading Noam Chomsky and things like that, and then it was just off to the races. So I've kind of had leftist principles my entire early adult life, really. I was a leftist before I started comedy. I was a leftist before and anything else that followed.
Yeah, I'm gonna take a second to brag, but I'm too young to remember the lead up to the Iraq War. Oftentimes in comedy spaces these days, I feel old, but now I'm like, oh no, I was 10 in 2003. People weren't born, but I wasn't watching CNN. How, how similar is what happened then to what we're seeing now with Iran, Cuba? Pick your poison. Pick.
Yeah. I think the war propaganda is literally always the same. I think it never ever changes. It's always the same playbook. They do not change the record up at all. It's always, oh, we can't allow Iran to develop a nuclear weapon. We can't allow Iraq. Iraq has weapons of mass destruction, even though there's no evidence of it and nobody's seen it. It's the same playbook. And then they you brainwash the American people to thinking, oh, well, this needs to be front and center. You're not a patriot if you don't support this. And we saw it during the Bush years. We're seeing it again now with Trump. Oh, yeah, no, we got a war. We can't. I know that grocery prices are going through the roof. I know that your quality of life is getting worse and worse and worse, but we got to stop Iran here. We got to do it. And so that's what you need to be focused on, that and my ballroom.
Yeah.
The difference between, I will say the difference between Bush and Trump is it's just more blunt and on the nose now. Like they're not even trying any subtlety. I mean, he's straight up saying, "I don't care what costs are for the American people." During the Bush administration, they at least pretended. They at least gave it all some lip service. But this time around, they're not even trying. And also another parallel is that this is the war that they both wanted. You know, George W. Bush really wanted his war with Iraq. He wanted his daddy's war. And then Trump, he really wanted his war with Iran. He wanted it the first time. He was instigating them the first time. Then the pandemic happened, and that kind of stopped that in its tracks. I mean, when people were like, Trump didn't start any new wars, technically, yeah, technically that's true, and that is a good thing. I'll take that. But why didn't he start any new wars? Well, because the pandemic stopped it. He wanted to have his war with Iran. The pandemic stopped him from getting it, so he was determined to get it this time.
Oh my gosh, the novel coronavirus. Welcome to the resistance. And speaking of lack of subtlety, by the time this come out, it will already happen. So we don't know who won Game 3 of the NBA Finals, but if the Knicks lose, everyone's going to blame Trump. Like I think if people haven't been radicalized already, but the fact that Trump didn't go to his son's wedding because he said he was too busy, but is now coming to New York City to attend a basketball game, a very important basketball game, but none of his children are on the team.
No.
Yeah.
No, but he
Farewell
couldn't
lip
attend that wedding.
service.
Yeah. Oh, it's yeah, that was pretty on the nose. And I got swept up in it, by the way. Like being in New York the past couple days, last weekend as of the recording of this. I did not grow up with the NBA. I'm actually a big hockey guy, but I don't know. Well, you might like me, you might not, because I'm Pittsburgh Penguins.
I've
But
I've as a Canadian, of course, I love
okay,
and
so
respect
it's
Sid the
Crosby.
Kid. Yeah, I'll never forget where I was, the 2010 Vancouver Olympics, the golden goal. A family friend's kid was at the watch party and said that he'd eat a donut for every Canada goal and ended up barfing, which is just one of the most beautiful, purest Canadian memories.
I remember that game too, and I was rooting for Canada because I'm not really thrilled of the actions of the United States, and plus there were just more Canadian players who I liked, and plus Sidney Crosby, so I was rooting for Canada. This time around, I was rooting for Canada again, and I felt like they had all the momentum in that game, and then the U.S. just just kind of. I mean, I don't want to take away how both teams played. Both teams played great, but I think that had Sidney Crosby been in that game, there's no way the United States would have won. And it was a little frustrating seeing like Cash Patel celebrating with the U.S. team and stuff, and hearing all like the nationalist nonsense from the United States. And I remember I posted about it and I got in trouble. but but I got in trouble with Canadians. So
Ooh,
well, here's what I posted. And it was out of frustration and frustration towards US nationalism and what was intended to be a pro Crosby sentiment. I said, "Man, Crosby won the gold for Canada in 2000, was it 2010 or 2009? I don't know. I had the year
2010,
right in the,
yeah.
it was 20, yeah. I had it right in the post, but I don't remember off the top of my head. But I was like, he won the gold for Canada in 2010 and he won the gold for the US in 2026. You know, basically meaning that had he been in that game, there's no way the US would have won. That was what I meant by that. But I guess people who didn't know me didn't realize that, and they thought I was, like, mocking his injury,
Oh, no.
which I totally wasn't, and I got they say, "Man, Canadians are friendly, except if they think you're mocking their players' injuries." They were not like, I was, like, attacked and dragged hard and was just totally confused. And then other people were celebrating it, and then they got in arguments. They're like, "I think he means that like we would have won if Crosby would have been there." And they're like, "No, he's mocking me." And so finally, I had to jump in, and I'm like, "Look, I'm sorry if I offended you, but I actually, yeah, I was rooting for you guys, and I think if Crosby had been in the game, Canada would have won, and that's all I meant by this. I want him to get better soon. I'm a Penguins fan, and also I just don't cheer on injuries in general. That's just not who I am. So, sorry to bother you, but it was kind of funny."
Yeah, and you presumably had the jersey or, like, the archival photos to back it up that you're like, "N no,
Oh
I."
yeah, if they would have taken a deep dive, that yeah, they would have seen like, oh, this dude's a Penguins fan. I think he was, but it was misunderstood without the context. Which hey, I get it. I mean, I that was a little bit of a frustrating game, so I get it. But yeah, it was kind of funny.
Yeah, and also you changing the rules for overtime means that they won technically on a different game. 3 on 3 is a different game. But
I do enjoy it though. I don't know. I mean, I know that's like sort
we're
of a
here for
hot
hot
button thing.
takes. Yeah, this is
Yeah,
what the podcast industrial complex, the
it's just so much fun to watch. I mean, I think it's so much fun to watch.
it's
I
so
don't know,
funny.
but it is different.
I missed Jack Hughes's goal because I was literally in the bathroom. I went to the bathroom and it was over.
Yeah, that's I mean, I've missed a lot of stuff for that reason. It's yeah, like that kind of happens. And I, you know, I my favorite sports are hockey and these days soccer. So, you know, it's the same kind of thing. You never know like when something's just going to take and a goal's going to happen, so you really can't look away.
Yeah, is the drama with Canadian hockey fans the most trouble you've gotten into on the internet? Or, like, have you had confrontations with MAGAroni?
Oh, I've had yeah, no, that pales in comparison to some of the some of the conflict I've gotten into on the internet over the past, 10 years or however, well, longer than that, but the past 10 years especially, whenever you kind of call out the political establishment for what it is, as a leftist, basically calling out the corruption of the GOP, which I think are basically Nazis at this point, and also calling out, the corruption of the DNC, which the Democratic establishment would be considered a right wing experiment pretty much anywhere else in the world. Like it's just like, well, we're left of Nazis, so so it's like we're not Nazis. That's pretty much. So man, that's what a lousy set of choices. So when you call out that structure, it's not really greeted with the most open arms in a place like the United States because everybody kind of wants to cheer for their teams. But you're kind of saying like, well, the system's rotten to the core. That doesn't mean that there aren't some, decent individuals trying to do the right thing within that rotten system, but the system's still rotten to its core. When somebody like Mamdani gets to be mayor, it's because someone messed up somewhere along the line that allowed that to happen.
It's because
Um,
the establishment tried to push through a sex pest.
right. Yeah, people were finally just over Cuomo, which again, he is an Italian American, so
Yeah.
but there was the Italians for Zoran that were I mean, that was actually how I found out about all of these different organizations was from the Italians for Zoran Instagram account. Like, that kinda started all of that for me, discovering all of those groups who, I later connected with when I decided to do Anti-Fascist Pasta Night.
Yes. What is the origin of the title?
So, anti-fascist pasta nights are a thing in Italy. They've existed since Mussolini got out of power because Mussolini took pasta away from the Italian people when he was in power. He said like you got to eat meat because pasta makes you weak. And by the way, he also had like a big thing about drinking whole milk. There's a lot of weird parallels with what's going on now and Mussolini. By the way, and then later Mussolini took away coffee from the Italian people, and that's when they decided they were going to kill him. They were like, "Okay, you're done. No coffee. Okay, nice try. You're going to take away our favorite food and say we can't be caffeinated throughout the day. You're done. It's over for you." So anti-fascist pasta nights have existed since in Italy as a way of gathering and around food and saying, "Hey, fascism's something we should never let happen again." So that's sort of what the title is a nod to, and I thought it was like a fun title for a show that's going to talk about the fascist uprising in the United States and around the world too. Um, at first, I thought it was like just too kind of too I don't want to say gimmicky, but kind of too like obvious. Like, oh yeah, who doesn't like fascism or who doesn't like pasta and loathe fascism? But then as time went on, it seems like that's actually a somewhat controversial view right now in the United States. So I decided, well, I got to call the show that. It's whatever the Trump administration when the Trump administration declared that anti-fascist thought was terrorism, I decided, well, I got to call the show this now. I can't not. And there's also, the personal component of, the Italian American part. Like that's not the entire show. You don't need to, relate to the Italian American background to appreciate the show. There's a ton that's not about that. But, every stand-up hour I've ever done has a personal component too, and that's kind of the big personal component in this one, and it's something I've never talked about much in my stand-up because I just never really, um it was just never really the right moment or the right way to talk about it, but now in this show, I'm really talking about it for the first time, and it feels really freaking cool because there's just I'm learning there's more and more people, and a lot of this is because of organizations in New York City who I was lucky enough to meet a lot of them when I was there. Um, a lot of people feel the same way I do. Like I'm not alone, and that's pretty freaking cool. And I know there's a lot more important things going on in the world right now than to be like, hey, a lot of Italian Americans don't like Columbus Day, FYI. But in the bigger theme of things, of, reclaiming not even just our radical history, but our accurate freaking history, I feel like that's an important step in, fighting back against fascism. I mean, honestly, because it's just like, look, if America ever was quote unquote great, which first of all, I'll say this, and I'm not trying to pander to you. It's just the reality. America's not a place. Like America, North America is a continent, South America is a continent, the United States of America is a place. But if the United States was ever great, it's because there was a strong working class and a dichotomy of ideas and a lot of different perspectives floating around. And it's because at one point in time, a bunch of socialists, anarchists, communists, labor organizers. Wow, I stumbled over that one. And just working class people gathered together and made FDR give the working people their due. We didn't get the New Deal because FDR felt like being nice. We got the New Deal because FDR looked out, realized there was complete unrest, and said to his other rich friends, like, well, you're either going to give a little bit or you're going to give everything because I can't stop what's outside. So you choose. And they said, we'll give a little bit, like, so I think that it's important to kind of reconcile with those things as we move forward.
What are you most looking forward to about taking the show overseas?
Well, first of all, I love the Edinburgh Fringe Festival. A lot of if you ask any comic who has done it, you'll hear a million different answers as far as they love it, they hate it, they're in between. Um, and it is a roller coaster ride of an arts festival. But I love it. I just love being around all the different all the different shows and just all the different things that are floating around in that festival and talking to people on the street about your show. Like I do enjoy it. And yeah, you're going to have those shows where you're only going to have a couple people in the audience. Then you're going to have other shows where you're sold out. And you're going to have a lot in between, but you kind of just got to bring it no matter what, cuz there might be 3 people in your audience, but maybe one of them's a reviewer. So if you phone it in or kind of throw a show, you're going to get a shitty review, and that's going to hurt you a lot. So I love the energy of the Edinburgh Fringe. So I'm stoked to officially premiere the show there. Um, and I'm interested to see like what people connect with. As far as being like non United States audiences. A lot of the people coming to my show are presumably going to be people who follow American politics somewhat, or they might not be interested in coming to such a show, and they have about 3,500 other choices at any given time. So they'll probably just be like, "Well, that's not for me." But I'm really interested to see like what they connect with. I feel like the show is thematic enough. It's not like I'm talking about like insular Congress people or something like that. Like it's thematic enough, that as long as you have like kind of the basics of American politics, you'll be fine. And you'll be able to follow the show. And so yeah, so I'm looking forward to seeing the international response to it. And as long as I've been around, I actually enjoy performing in other countries better than the United States for some of the reasons that we talked about earlier, like as regards to like have you gotten in trouble on the internet and stuff like that. In the United States, again, if you go after the system as a whole and you don't have any sacred cows, sometimes people don't appreciate that because you're not really bending the knee to their side. Overseas, they kind of get it. They have an outsider view of the United States and they see how just kind of messy and corrupt it is and how it really is the modern day empire because it is. And so they appreciate that perspective a little more. At least that's been my experience. I mean, I remember the first time I did the Edinburgh Fringe was in 2023, and I had this joke that makes fun of Biden, but also makes fun of Trump. Like it really just took shots at both of them in the same bit, and there was literally no problem
Yeah.
for an entire 2-week run in Edinburgh. Everybody just freaking loved the joke. My first show back in the States, I happened to do that joke, and this person who was a Democrat had a freaking meltdown.
I-
Just had a meltdown that I did that. It's like, well, you should have heard what I said about the other guy. Like, did you fall asleep during that part? Like, what happened? But yeah, they just had a meltdown that I went after, their sacred cow, which in this case was Joe Biden, and that was sort of like, oh, welcome back to the U.S. So yeah, in my experience, and that includes, by the way, Canada. Toronto is one of my favorite cities to perform in. I love Toronto for a lot of reasons, actually. I really like Toronto. I think my favorite Canadian city is probably Vancouver, just overall. But yeah, I'm a big Toronto file. Is that
yeah,
is that what do you call it?
Torontonian ally.
Okay,
Yeah,
we'll call it that. That's a mouthful, but all
Toronto
right.
curious.
Toronto curious.
I'd love to hear
Definitely.
where else on the planet have you performed?
Um, I've done Australia,
Oh shit, what's that like? I've
Canada.
never been.
Oh, Australia's awesome. Australia is so much fun to perform in, and they have a lot of really good festivals. I mean, the Adelaide Fringe is really good. I just did a tour over there, a co-headlining tour with another comic I used to tour with, a guy, Graham Elwood, very funny dude, and we did Adelaide, Perth, Sydney, and Melbourne. And yeah, I mean, it was great. We actually did a matinee in Sydney, and it worked. I mean, it was, it was sold out. and it was at this punk club, and they were thrilled to have us because they had a full room on an afternoon, and all they had to do was basically turn on a microphone, because we were comics and not a band. So they were like thrilled to have us. And I found out like the sound guy used to work with there's this legendary Australian punk band called The Saints. And I like The Saints. And so I was kind of geeking out when I found out like he worked with the Saints and did a bunch of stuff. So I was like, so they probably got like the biggest kick out of that. Like, yeah, these American comics came in and they filled up the room 2 o'clock on a Saturday, and the one guy was geeking out about the Saints. um, but yeah, it was and then Perth was like really cool because like you're literally close to the equator and you're like on the other side of the freaking world, and you could feel it. Like you could feel that you're just like really kind of far away, and it's this beautiful coastal town. And they really appreciate that you make the trip. Like they know that they know they're not a close commute for pretty much anybody, so they come out wanting to have a damn good time. So yeah, I really love touring Australia. And yeah, I've done some stuff in Canada, which I love going up to Canada. I've done sets in Tokyo. I've done sets in Dublin, Rome, and then like stuff in the UK. Like Edinburgh Fringe, and then I've done stuff in London. Uh, yeah, I think that's it.
What's the Tokyo scene like? There's an English speaking
It's
comedy scene?
amazing. Well, yeah, all throughout the country there is, but yeah, in Tokyo, I think it's just called the Tokyo Comedy Bar, but it's run by these two British guys, BJ and Virgil, and super cool guys, and they have built an amazing scene there. Like there's a couple comics that really started there that are blowing up all over the world now. Like they just blew up on Instagram, and they're like touring all around the world now. And it is a super cool club. They have, they run their showcases really tight. They kind of run it New York style a little bit. And there's a lot of good comics there, and it ranges from, there's some people from, the UK, people from the US, people from Canada, and then there's some Australians, and then there's also just locals who are into English speaking comedy and do it, and then they're funny, and the audience is reflective of that too. You'll get a mix of a lot of travelers, a lot of people on vacation or traveling through or whatever, and then you'll get a lot of immigrants. I try not to use the word expat too much because I know it kind of has like it's a bit problematic. So I'll say like immigrants, people from other places that live there. And then you get locals who are just into, American comedy or English speaking comedy. And yeah, it's a really, really cool club out there. I can't speak to any of the other spots in Japan because I've only ever been there. But yeah, like there's a couple really good clubs out there, and there's like a whole kind of circuit that you can do. I performed in Thailand. I forgot. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, I did Thailand as well. Like just one spot. Because I wasn't there for comedy. I was just there, for vacation, but I ended up doing a spot because why not? But yeah, like there's a lot of runs in that part of the world now.
Have ever pretended to be Canadian or felt the need to pretend to be Canadian?
I've never done it. I know people who have. I know that sometimes it's easier to just say you're Canadian. And honestly, this is something, I don't know if you're aware of this, but we are told to at times. Like
Ooh,
yeah, you
Marco
know that?
Rubio himself? No, yeah.
No, Marco Rubio didn't tell me, but like generally speaking, you are kind of advised where they'll be like, yeah, if because there's like so much anti-American sentiment in the world, they will tell you to say you're Canadian. If somebody seems like they might be a bit aggressive towards you, like they'll tell you to say you're Canadian, especially like when Iraq was really going on and stuff. They would say that. I never did it. These days, you know, I'll admit to this. Whenever someone says, "Where are you from?" and I'm traveling, or I will not say the United States. I will just say Los Angeles.
Mm. That's
because I feel like when you say Los Angeles or New York, uh, you'll get a different vibe from people because that those are just kind of known as their own thing. I'm not saying that's fair or right. I'm just saying that's the way it is.
oh, it's definitely right. Carrie Bradshaw, when she moved to Paris, she's like, "I'm not American, I'm a New Yorker." Shows, willingness or at least, ability to cooperate, to
Yeah,
be from a non-homogeneous culture.
yeah, and honestly, with what we pay to live in those, come on, is like, you know what? For what we pay to live in Los Angeles or New York, like we've earned it. We can do that.
That's how I feel about the Knicks because I do like a lot of lifelong Knicks fans, born and bred New Yorkers, like to gatekeep and say you didn't suffer with us during the Stephon Marbury era in the early 2000s. You don't get to claim this joy. And I'm like, I pay rent, dude.
Right. Well, and plus, I mean, are you a Leafs fan?
Or yes, basketball would be Raptors. I did
Right, right,
was
right.
yeah, but
But the reason I ask about the Leafs is because you've paid your dues in
I
other ways.
suffered
I mean, yeah,
exactly.
you've
I
suffered, and
empathize.
like they
Um,
can't, you know.
but this is the ideal circumstances in which to say I after the Olympics and the pageantry and the White House trip and this propaganda, I'm done with the Leafs. I can't root for Austin Matthews. S- s- So I was
Yeah.
all in on the Habs because they seem like a more wholesome club.
Yeah, I mean, I know that the Leafs have been kind of corrupt for like a really long time as an organization because it's sort of like they'll, they like misspend the money. So I don't know enough to like really speak about it fluently. And
There's a
and I
good
will say
there's a CBC
Rogers,
documentary I watched with my dad, yeah.
I should watch it. Yeah, what's it called?
It's called Offside: The Harold Ballard Story, and
Okay.
the catchphrase is, "Maple Leafs owner Harold Ballard didn't invent greed, he perfected it."
Yeah, yeah, I should watch that so then I like know a little bit more about it. I will say Rogers is a wonderful venue to watch a game. Watching a game in that venue is, yeah, they do a good job. They do a good job.
Yeah, it's hard not to get, like, swept up in the yeah, pageantry as a theater kid too.
Yeah, well, live hockey, I think live hockey is one of the most amazing sports to experience live. And like I grew up with it, so I don't really know a time when it wasn't part of my life. But for people who are like, I'm not really that into hockey, my next question is always, have you been to a game? And most of the time, the answer is no, because it's like one of those when you go to a game, I don't know, it's hard not to get wrapped up in it. I feel the same way about soccer too, and some people don't agree with that. I mean, some people find it boring or whatever, but I don't find it boring at all. I think it's and I've come to enjoy it more and more as I've gotten older. Because I used to enjoy the NFL some, and they've just made it. I mean, talk about politically, they've made it difficult to want to be part of anything that they do, but also they've just kind of butchered the game. I feel like, where every down takes like 45 minutes because they just deliberate every little thing. And there's, I mean, I think they're probably a year or two away from drafting attorneys for each team, just negotiating a call for like an hour and a half. So it's just, I mean, now an NFL game is just really boring to me. I'll watch college football. It's a little more fun to watch for me, but I used to really enjoy, the game itself, and I still think it's a really cool game, but I just can't really watch the NFL anymore. I just find it boring. But yeah, so soccer and hockey have kind of taken the 1 and 2 spot for me.
Yeah, soccer, I'm hoping to lock in for this World Cup because I just love the idea of having something to talk about with literally anyone on the planet.
Yeah. Right? I mean, yeah, it is infectious, and I like the USL, which is the league below MLS. So it's like the minor leagues for United States soccer.
Oh,
Um,
interesting.
yeah, and my team is the Pittsburgh Riverhounds, and they're pretty cool because they're like, their fan base kinda has, like, a socially conscious element to it, like, there's a big banner, that their club always has, and it says, "Love Pittsburgh, hate racism," and it's
Oh.
at, like, every game, and they're very, like, pro LGBTQ and stuff like that, so there's, like, a cool, like, social component to their fan base, and I find that kinda neat and refreshing, so I like cheering for them, and then internationally, my team is Forza Napoli because that's where a lot of my family's from, and they're good for the first time in recent years. They've been really good, and it's like the first time since like Maradona played, which I wasn't even really alive for most of, or if I was certainly not cognizant, because I was like way, really really young. But and Maradona, they bring it back to politics, and Maradona was an outspoken communist, so.
Oh, I didn't know that. Well, yeah, and Argentina was like a dictatorship, like, in the
Mhm.
'70s and '80s, so he spoke out against it?
Mhm. Yeah, yeah. I don't know how much he did directly where he played throughout the years, and I also like couldn't fluently mention the timeline. Like, oh, he was in Argentina there, and he was in Napoli there, and then I think he played a couple other places too. I'm pretty sure, but yeah, I mean, he was definitely like a big communist, and was pretty outspoken about it until he died. He had other issues, like I'm not, he's got his issues, but yeah.
Who are some other heroes? Because yeah, we talk a lot about how much people suck, but we got the fan base of the Pittsburgh Riverhounds. Like, what's giving you hope these days?
Oh, what's yeah, I don't know if I would, like, put a soccer fan base first and foremost. That'd be really freaking bleak, but,
Yeah.
but honestly, it is, kinda like what we talked about where people are just starting to say, "We're not gonna stand for this." I mean, when you see like what's going on in Delaney Hall, where people are just standing
Yes,
up to
tell us for
ICE.
the people who are not familiar, yeah.
So in New Jersey, they are just protesting this ICE facility, and they have been out there. I collaborate some with Status Coup News, which is one of the outlets that has been on the ground the entire time. I actually did invite them. I was just like, "Hey, you guys are doing the Lord's work. Please, if you're able to take a break, come to my show as my guest. It'd be cool to see you." And I feel like you've earned, the revolution. You need to take a break. You can't, you can't revolution if you're just too freaking exhausted. You need to recharge. But unfortunately they weren't able to get away on a Friday night. But yeah, so there has been mass protests going on there. And it's gotten, a little gnarly as far as police brutality and ICE brutality. Tragically that is going to happen, but people are standing up and they're saying we can't tolerate this. This is not our, get out of our neighborhoods, and same as what we saw in Minneapolis. I mean, that was very tragic, but also very inspiring, and I think spoke to the true resilience of the American people. And yeah, I do take a pride in that sort of thing that we're not, even something like the No Kings protest, which I marched, and I know a lot of people did, and I have my critiques of that as a whole because there wasn't really any demands. But the other side of it, though, is it was so big that it really showed the world that, oh, the American people aren't just passively sitting back while this is happening. Like they're outraged. That's important. The world needs to fricking know that. And so, yeah, even though there's some issues with No Kings not having any demands, which I think is a very valid criticism, and I share it, there's still value in the world seeing people outraged like that, and then duplicating it around the world. Because like fascism's not just limited to our borders. It knows no borders. That was the way it worked the first time, and that's the way it's going to work this time and every other time where it's going to be tried. So yeah, I that is where I get my hope. The fact that general strike is something in our common vernacular now, I get my hope seeing the country of Italy shut down its country for Palestine. They shut Rome down so hard that Giorgia Meloni had to change her tune. They have forced their fascist prime minister, to change her tune on Israel Palestine because I get my hope when the dock workers, who by the way are strong unions, they refuse to ship the weapons. They've been doing that for years now, but it's getting a lot of attention now because they're basically saying we'll shut down the entire freaking economy. Like if you try to ship these weapons and you know it's horrific what's going on in Gaza right now and it's just so freaking brutal. But you know when you see people standing up that way, um it's very meaningful and it does make a difference and it's the only way we're going to stop it. So that's where I get my hope.
Amazing. And if you have the stamina for the revolution, then you definitely have the stamina for the Edinburgh Fringe. Do you have a routine? Like, are you like an electrolyte person, a nap person? For those who don't know, like it's literally a show every day. And the competition is fierce. Every surface in Edinburgh becomes a performance venue. I went for a few days in 2022, so I missed you, but I was just in awe of like the shipping containers that they dropped in the middle of
Right?
the college quad. That rules.
Did you see some of the also like they basically look like those food trucks and they make a stage out of it?
Oh my gosh,
Did you see any of
no.
those?
Oh,
Yeah,
that's
oh yeah, you'll see
awesome.
some of those.
But
Yeah.
I did go to a food place. I saw a friend's solo show in the basement of a burrito place.
That's the beautiful thing about that city. Every establishment, I mean, unless you're just a straight up restaurant in some cases, but almost every they have an ideal performance space. And it's because they got to think, hey, every August, the biggest arts festival in the world happens here. Do we want to participate or do we want to leave a lot of money on the table? And in some cases, if you're just a straight up restaurant, yeah, you're not going to have a live performance there and you're just going to partake in the all the people that are there that are going to eat at your restaurant. And that's fine. But if you're like anything in between, you're like a bar or like whatever, you gotta get a solid performance space or you're missing out. But I love this question, so I really want to answer it. For me, I love ginseng patches. I
Ooh.
can have one on right now.
Okay, they don't
um
sponsor the podcast just yet, but they should.
yeah,
Or
I
sponsor Anti-Fascist Pasta Night.
please, yes. No, I'm a big ginseng enthusiast in general, and I unfortunately like the patches are the best way to get it. I wish I could, like get it by other like teas or something like that, but those are like super hard to find, and the patches are easy to just get in bulk, so I use those. But yeah, ginseng patch. I am a power nap guy. My latest thing, and I will say and I'm not embellishing, this might be the best $30 I ever spent in my life. Heated eye mask.
Oh.
Oh, it's the best thing. I've purchased one for multiple people at this point because it's like so great. Like my friend that I was crashing with in New York, I got her one as a thank you gift, and I am prone to migraines a little bit, and the heated eye mask really helps as a preventative and just as like just a soothing, and it's on a timer, so you're not gonna like burn your face or whatever. But heated eye mask, greatest, like turn that thing on, take a quick power nap. It's amazing. So yeah, I'm a power nap guy. I'm a ginseng guy. Um, and yeah, I mean, I am an advocate of pacing yourself to some extent. I'm not saying. I mean, look, it's the biggest arts festival in the world. Enjoy yourself by all means. But like I am one of those like, well, I'm not gonna like throw back, 5 or 6 pints every night because that's gonna add up. I'll throw back 1 or 2 every now and again. Sure, why not? Come on, enjoy yourself. But yeah, I kind of pace myself in that regard, and I try to pace myself diet wise too, because it's really easy to just be like, I'm gonna get some street food, but you're doing that 3 meals a day. If you're 20, that's fine, but if you're not, which I'm not, you don't want to do that. So You gotta pace yourself a little bit. I'm not saying I don't do that at all. Of course I do. But I try to, try to be reasonable with it and try to, like, prepare food ahead of time and, like, pace myself dietarily and make sure you're getting, like, some produce and stuff like that and all that fun
Yeah,
stuff.
do they have produce? I remember I was there for a few days and I'm like, I have not eaten a vegetable
Yeah,
since landing. Yeah.
it's easy to get, like, I mean, yeah, it's easy to just kind of fall into that. But yeah, I mean, they do. They have, I forget the name of, like, the big chain, but it's, like, one of their main kinda grocery stores that are throughout England and Scotland, and they do a lot of things where you can get they do this thing called the Munchie Box. I've never actually had one, but that will just have, like, pizza and, like, mozzarella sticks and, like, a bunch of stuff that's bad for you. It does look totally delicious, but maybe not the best nutritional option to do all the time. But they also do things where you can get, like, a sandwich and fruit, um, for like a set price. It's like £5 or something like that. So you can totally do that and get, like, a reasonable sandwich and get fruit and have that be at least one of your meals throughout the day, and it's pretty reasonably priced. And you can also just, if you're staying in a place that maybe is a little more outside the city center, there's going to be, like, bigger grocery stores where you can just kind of go and get stuff you need. And if you're staying at a place that has at least a kitchen space, I mean, I think I stayed in student housing the last time I was there.
Oh,
So there
cool.
was, like, a common area kitchen space, and as long as you, like, marked your stuff in the fridge, no one messed with it. Everybody was pretty, cordial and accommodating and proper, like, people weren't stealing stuff from anyone else. Um, yeah, I would keep, like, grapes and, like, strawberries and, whatever else, and, I would try to cook for myself the best I can. I definitely did some more instant noodles than I would on a regular basis. But yeah. So I try to do the best I can with my diet. Um, I'll never understand haggis, but I'm gonna try again when I'm there. I always try. I always try, and I'm always like, yeah, not for me. But but I'm gonna try again. Every time I've ever been to Scotland, I have tried.
Yeah, are there any other I guess any other specifically Scottish things you're looking forward to? But no, the beauty of the festival is that you can experience any culture. You got people from all over the world performing in food trucks.
Yeah, I mean, it's wild. Yeah, culinarily, I don't. I'm sure there's stuff out there, but I can't. I mean, I have, like, some of my favorite spots that I like to go. Like, there's this one. I'm forgetting the name of it off the top of my head, but it's this Indian place where it's like it's kind of cafeteria style, and I think it's like £6, and they just give you this plate of food like as big as your head, and you just, like, you point to, it's like you get rice and then you get, like, curry or dal or, whatever you want on top, and it's freaking amazing, and it's very fresh and very affordable. Um, there was this bakery right across from my venue, and one of the things I always love to do, like, either right before or right after the show to, like, say, "Hey, good job," is I would get, like, an espresso and a cannoli,
Oh,
and, they had an interesting take on cannoli in that bakery. I don't know if that's all of Scotland, but in that bakery, they had an interesting take on the cannoli where they would do, like, different types of flavors and a different, type of shell. Like, I remember one was, like, this, like, lemon custard in, like, a graham cracker-esque shell, and it was a different take. I prefer a more kinda traditional Sicilian style cannoli myself, but it was still good, and I appreciated it, and I thought it was cool that, they're doing all these different takes on cannolis.
I'm sure there will be a haggis cannoli at some point. That's a good.
I think I bet this year that's gonna happen. Or it's somebody's that's gotta be a future show, haggis cannoli.
Yeah, honestly, that's your next hour.
This
Amazing.
is the
Yeah,
next one, haggis cannoli.
Anti-Fascist Pasta Night and then the show about doing the show, haggis cannoli.
Haggis cannoli edition, yes, yeah.
And amazing, where can people find you? On the internet or in person in Scotland?
Yeah, so I'll be at the Edinburgh Fringe all of August. You can get all the information of where I'll be at ronplacone.com. I have it all listed on my website. I'll be at the same venue every day at 3:45 in the afternoon, which is a good time because it's like right before happy hour and also before all the primetime shows. So it's just like solid way to end your afternoon run of shows is with me for Anti-Fascist Pasta Night. RonPlacone.com is my website. I'm Ron Placone on all platforms, including Substack, Instagram, and Twitter, and Blue Sky. All of them, Ron Placone, whatever the platform of your choice is, you'll find me. And I will also mention my movie Left It Wall is out now. It's on a bunch of different platforms. I recommend getting it on Tubi or YouTube free with ads because it's free that way. So why rent it if you don't have to? Unless you want to buy it, in which case, by all means, buy it. You can even get it on DVD if you want. But I recommend Tubi or YouTube free with ads. And if you just type in Left It Wall, it'll come up. Or my website also has a tab for Left It Wall where you can find out all the ways you can watch it if you're not sure, which way you want to do it. But yeah, my movie Left It Wall is out now. That's a fun anti-capitalist comedy about family. It calls out the Wall Street machine, which is, you want to talk about what really keeps the war economy going. Well, it's Wall Street. It's like they're invested in all of the defense, and they bought up the media, so we get a pro-war slant on everything. And so that's what really keeps the war economy going. So it's a movie that calls all that out. And yeah, so ronplacone.com, I guess, is the nucleus for all of that.
Amazing. I'll have the links in the show notes. And thank you so much. I'm very glad you cleared the air about the Sidney Crosby joke.
Yeah, right. I hope for any Canadians out there that maybe now you got the clarification. When I did respond to people, all of a sudden it did kind of stop. So,
Yeah.
but yeah, no, that was a fun. That was an interesting moment. Yeah, it was kind of funny, like all the hate I was getting, and at first I thought it was from people in the U.S., but then I realized I was like, oh no, it's Canadians that are mad at me. They feel like I'm gloating. And I'm for sure not. It's like I was rooting for you guys. But yeah, so
Eh,
hopefully that clears that up.
exactly. You're fighting against people defaulting, assuming Americans are gloating, taking on the monolith of both the Italian American experience and the American American experience.
That's right. That's right. Mixing it up.
Thank you so much. Thank you for listening and or watching War is Stupid, an anti-war podcast about war. Please subscribe, rate and review, tell your dads. We'll see you next time.